and I'm presenting one of the talks I held in front of an audience of filmmakers, and it is about how to create content for the metaverse. And for those of you who are crazy deep into virtual reality, it's not going to be the most technical talk. It's more of an inspirational talk showing the different methods that people have been using for content creation for what we call the metaverse. And even though it's going to be a little bit light on the tech deep dive, I'm pretty sure that I at least can convince a couple of you to buy this book. Ready Player One is something that probably most of you have heard about, and I actually want to know from the audience, who of you has not read that book yet? Okay, so once again, this is a book you should have read, because it shows a very great vision of what virtual reality can become in the future, and how a metaverse will be interconnecting people all around the world in an immersive space. They will have the ability to do things in ways that aren't yet possible in a technological sense. Ready Player One essentially plays in the year 2022, 2027, where people are living outside of the cities in these kinds of slums that are just stacks of trailers, because the rent prices have become so crazy that everyone cannot afford anymore to live in the inner cities. But instead, they have to go to the outer suburbs and live in these these modern or dystopian trailer parks. But on the other hand, this kind of world is very important to the main character, who is called Wade, and he's hunting for a treasure that's hidden somewhere in the metaverse. And the book not only shows a great image or vision of the future for VR, but also gives you, it's really well written in the sense that it's engaging. It's a page turner, so to speak. And what is also part of that vision is VR will be everywhere. So people are learning through VR, for example. Pupils that are raised during that time, they have access to the best teachers from all around the world. They can essentially tap into any university course that's out there. They can go to MIT, they can go to the top colleges in Europe, and all of that just by putting on a headset. And what you see behind me now is an actual artwork from Steven Spielberg's adaptation of Ready Player One. So this is the first image that was ever released publicly from Ready Player One, and it shows the kind of situation that Wade lives in. So he lives in a trailer park. It's all pretty messy, and in his virtual reality adventures, he's trying to find that treasure that's hidden within the metaverse somewhere. And as you can see, he not only has haptic gloves. He not only has a headset, he also has haptic gloves. He has a heat emitter in front of him. So just playing with more senses, being tapped deeper into the virtual reality world is a main topic. And as I said, people are learning in the future with virtual reality. And to give you an example from the current world, VR is actually helping people to learn better. So a recent study in China was unveiled only a couple of weeks ago, where they had 4 different groups of people. So one group tried virtual reality or learned the content with virtual reality. One group did not learn with virtual reality. And those 2 groups had refreshments in the meanwhile. So there was one group which had another refreshment through virtual reality, and another group that only had one virtual reality treatment, so to speak. And the baseline outcome of that study is that the VR group is performing 27% better in tests when it's an immediate test. And what's even more interesting is that the retention of that knowledge is way higher with virtual reality. So in a test that was 2 weeks after that first test, the VR group performed 32% better. So not only does VR help you to learn better, it also helps you to retain that knowledge on a deeper level. And that is very promising. So that is one of those things that Ernest Cline is describing in his book Ready Player One. But just for a general question, what is the metaverse? So how do we define that, and how do we build it? Fortunately, there is already a good baseline, a good foundation out there for the metaverse, which is the internet. I mean, I'm not telling you something new. What you see here on the screen is just an animation of how, over the course of a day, the internet and the internet activity is going up and going down. So these are relative IP4 measurements at doing ping requests to different servers all around the world, and this is how they react. So what this shows you is that we already have a living, breathing organism out there, which is the internet, that is already interconnecting all these people. So the technical foundation for the metaverse, connecting people with each other all around the globe, is already there. And it's growing like crazy. In 2003, we had 780 million users on the internet. And as you can see, there's a couple of, I hope you can see it, there's a couple of gaps in between those server lines. So those are all the backbones of the internet connected and all the servers that are connected to these backbones. Not individual users in this image, but just the traffic routes that the major backbones are taking. In 2015, there were 3.2 billion users. And that already went up by about 500 million in 2017, but there's no current statistics on that, unfortunately. But this is how the internet looks like right now, so everyone's interconnected already. We're living in a totally digitally connected world. I could put up my phone, make a selfie, and be able to instantly share that with everybody who has access to an internet account. And that is a possibility that allows you to build that metaverse on top of that foundation. So the big question is, how do you create content for the metaverse? I've tried VR 4 years ago, and ever since then, that is a big question that I had in my mind. And just to introduce myself, my name is Dominic, and I've been building GoPro rigs myself because I wanted to answer the question, how do you make content for the metaverse? How do you capture a real situation and bring it to as many people as possible in the most immersive way possible? So I laser cut it, and I 3D printed, and I did all these things to build my own GoPro rig. I went to Australia to try to capture koala bears, and to be honest, the footage was pretty shitty. So it was so hard to actually watch that on a VR headset, because you not only need to do things like warp stabilization so that the image doesn't wobble as much, because that GoPro rig I built there, it was cool, but it was nowhere near production quality. So the whole workflow of getting that footage not only shot, but also then displayed in a virtual reality environment is quite hard. And the solution that many people are doing out there on a professional level is, well, just add more GoPros. In this case, you see a 6 GoPro rig that allows you to take 360-degree video, but only monoscopic. And for a good virtual reality experience, I probably don't have to tell you, stereoscopic is super important, because you want to have that feeling of depth, a feeling of size, just being able to guess how big a building is, for example, just by glancing at it for 1 second. And, well, how do you get it stereoscopic? Well, you add some more GoPros. This shows Google's Jump and the iteration that GoPro built themselves. So this is the GoPro Odyssey camera. It takes a stereoscopic 360-degree image, and then they only have overlapping cameras, and they use a clever software algorithm to then extract depth information from the parallax difference that is within these cameras. But you still have the problem that, for example, if you take a look at this, there's no camera on the bottom and no camera on the top. You can see it here, but there's none. So, well, why don't you just build a big ball of cameras? So you just add more cameras, which seems to be the solution for the current content creation in virtual reality, at least when it comes to capturing the real environments. But the problem with this is now you have full stereoscopic, look around, 360-degree content, but you can't move the camera. So as the viewer, you're always confined to the place that the cameraman put the camera. You can't move at all. You can't see a scene from a different angle. And it's a pretty hard technical problem to solve, but there are a couple solutions out there that you can do. And one of them is light fields. So what you see here is a prototype camera. So this is actually just a render of a light field camera. And what this allows you, since the size of the camera is actually pretty big, you can move your head inside the volume of that light field, so inside the volume of that camera. That gives you at least more immersion, so you have the feeling of, hey, as I move my head, I'm actually being part of the scene, but it will never solve the problem of having a true interactive movie, for example, where I can just walk over to the other side of the room and whatever, look at some famous actors, Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie, just from a different angle. Just being able to move around and have an agency in that scene is going to be very important for proper immersive content creation for the metaverse. Like I said, walking around is a little bit of a tricky thing. So one method that you can use if you really want to go for photorealistic environments in virtual reality is something called photogrammetry and videogrammetry. So essentially, you use a ton of photos from a scene, you stitch those. It's not really stitching, it's more extracting depth and 3D information from those photographs, and then build a scene, a 3D model out of that. And then adding what many people are calling videogrammetry, which is a system of volumetrically capturing a person, like 8i does, for example, and then putting that character into the scene you first created with photogrammetry. And the result you get looks a little bit like this. So this is a bit of an older demo. Some of you might have seen it already. Essentially, the whole scene that you see around, all the rocks, are done with photogrammetry. So they scanned a real-world environment, and then they scanned a real person and put that person into that environment. And as you can see, now you have the actual ability to walk all around in that scene. You can look at it from all angles, and you can experience it in a way that you never could in any other type of media. And what 8i does is right now still at the prototype stage. So it's not like it's a full production thing that you can have or can buy right now. It's still in the production phase. But this shows you a glimpse of what the future could look like. So imagine a Transformers movie, for example, where you are right in the middle of the action. Something like that could be easily done with systems like that and added CGI on top. And the CGI part actually brings me to my next question. What about CGI content? If we want to have something that is photorealistic, that where actors are actually looking like they would in a real movie, you have to take one step further. So you have to first create the digital character, and then make that character behave just like a real person would, just like an actor would. Because otherwise, you'll never be able to communicate empathy, for example, or sadness, or something like that, or a personal connection with that actor that is in your scene. So that is pretty important. It's one way of solving also the question of how can you move around in a space. So you use CGI to create a scene, and then you use a real-world actor to put life into that scene. And what you see here is a tech demo by Epic Games. They've built a whole workflow into Unreal Engine where you can essentially take an actor and have him perform in a headset like this one, and then all the information from the face is getting taken in real time into the engine. So you don't have to do the motion capturing and then the rendering and then you see the result. Instead, you can put it live into the engine. So somebody who's doing an interactive movie has the ability to shoot the scene the exact way that he wants, which is a very powerful tool. And then you also have the added effect of being able to add emotions to those characters, which is a little bit tricky when you're doing videogrammetry. You might have seen it in that other video. There's no eye contact. So as you walk around that person, she never looks at you. She's just standing there and playing her role, which is something that has to be solved for a truly engaging experience in a virtual reality interactive movie, what I call it. And this has been prototyped and also been delivered to a couple of Hollywood studios. So there might be something coming up in the future where we see really cool content rapidly being prototyped with systems like that for virtual reality. And those are only the examples that are existing right now. So you can imagine somebody comes up with an even more clever way of scanning a real place or bringing real actors into a scene. So we're just tipping our toes into that field of technology right now. But it's a very promising field because this way you can just create scenes that are way more convincing. So I actually foresee a metaverse that will have unlimited content. Just like on YouTube, you can browse forever and ever and ever, literally, and never have an ending stream of content. I foresee the same thing happening for the metaverse, where you can play games, you can travel to other countries, you can go just about everywhere, you can learn about space and time in a way that no other medium can. So the metaverse will not only have unlimited content, but it will also have unlimited connectivity. So you'll be able to share those virtual spaces with just about everybody that has a virtual reality headset. No matter where they are, no matter what time zone they're in, they just jump in your game and you'll be able to have a true social experience in what we call the metaverse. And just as a little bit of an inspirational thing, because I actually had two choices, either a technical talk or an inspirational talk, but Sasha chose the inspirational talk. This is a little bit of an inspirational thing. The metaverse will be built by very, very clever people. So the Elon Musk, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the you name it, the Eric Schmidts of the future, the Bill Gates of the future, will be someone who's creating really good content for the metaverse, something where people can engage with, something that everybody will use in the future. So this will be built by very smart people. And since this is Casual Connect, I know there's a couple of smart people in this room sitting already that are building some of the foundations for that metaverse. Thomas, for example, is building the audio part over here, and there's a ton of other people that are doing something, just crazy, interesting things when it comes to laying that groundwork. And what I'm trying to say is be part of that movement. Be one of those smart people that people might be remembering in the future, and let's build that metaverse together. So thanks, and have a great Casual Connect.
A foundation platform to materialize itself, like one common platform, and then everybody builds on similar engine or using similar languages, similar input device. So what I'm asking is there a need for standardization before the metaverse can exist?
So what I've laid out is that the technical foundation for the metaverse at least exists already. So the connectivity is already there. And in terms of platforms that are needed, where you have a centralized platform that everybody is on, like similar to Facebook, for example, there are about 120,000 companies that are building that exact thing. So that's obviously an over-exaggeration. But there's a ton of people who are building social VR experiences already, which you could define at kind of the first step for metaverse interaction, social interaction in the future. So there's high fidelity, for example. There's Altspace, even VR chat, which was started off as a VR chatting tool, more or less becomes a social tool where you're hanging out in the same environment with people, listening to talks, listening to podcasts, watching the same movie on a big screen. So these things are already happening. So the foundation, to answer your question, is already there to a certain degree.
So when we will see at mobile platform, when we'll take a look, we saw that there was the main functionality of mobile phones was taking pictures and videos, and thus we saw like the popping out a lot of different startups like Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook and stuff like that. And the struggle which I see with VR is that there is hard to show like the main medium to share, which would be like differentiated from what we saw earlier. And do you have any idea what could be like the replacement of the photos and videos on which like the next big companies could build on top?
I think what goes into the best direction in terms of sharing content for the metaverse, and then also with regular people, is I think the tech demo that Facebook showed at Oculus Connect 3. I'm not sure if some of you have seen that, where there are people in VR that can use Messenger, for example, to invite people that are just looking at a 2D screen into that virtual world. So essentially, in the VR world, I'm sitting in an immersive space with someone else, and then I get a call from someone, and that call is being displayed on a virtual screen in front of me. And what the person on the other side sees is the footage that comes through a virtual camera that you can then point around, a virtual smartphone, so to speak. And I think that way of sharing virtual content with people that are just casually browsing Facebook, for example, on other media, will become an important part to drive adoption, to drive the interest in VR. Because that's the first step we have to take, is just get people on there. And from there, you can imagine sharing tools Like, for example, what I think will be very important is just location sharing. So being able to invite you, for example, to my old, like our old college dorm room, like just have that scanned in and hang out in that old college dorm room. That's something I think people will share more likely, because that feeling of being in another place is something that you also want to share with other people. And that's like, hey, take a look at this scan I made, or take a look at, hey, here's our old bar, why not hang out a little bit? So I think those types of meetings in VR will be the type of content that will be shared.
I have a question about Ready Player One, because you mentioned that in the beginning. I think it's a great book, but I can't help noticing also that it's to some extent a dystopian book, right?
Of course.
And though the oasis, the metaverse in that book seems to be altogether a happy place compared to the real world, which has basically been broken down, gone to shambles. The oasis in that book is like constantly on the verge of being taken over by a conglomerate of business people who want to monetize everything with ads, right? And that seems to be a very possible outcome for any kind of metaverse which we might build. So should we build the metaverse? Do we want that? Are you sure you want to ask for that?
That's actually a very good question. The type of image that Ready Player One draws, or the type of vision that they draw, is definitely also negative to a certain degree, because Ernest Cline wants to warn people of the dangers that are there. If people are just spending all their time in VR and not doing any social interactions anymore, that's obviously the worst case you can have. But he's also shedding light on the positive aspects. So like enabling those poor people to have proper education, to have the best education system they can get, and hang out with people from all over the world, even though they are confined in that little trailer, is also a little bit of a hopeful perspective. So what I'm always trying to say is, we are aware that this might happen, so we can at least do our best to steer away from that dystopian vision, and have mechanisms in place that aren't telling you to just play more, whatever, World of Warcraft in VR, but instead have media competency and be aware that every type of media consumption is not good if you're doing it too much. So that's my hope, that there's enough people and enough parents educated already, that they know that this could be a danger, and it might as well have happened with TV as well. So there were probably people saying, hey, sometime in the future everyone's just sitting in front of their TVs all day, and even though it happens in some places, I think it's common knowledge that you just shouldn't overdo it. So that's what I'm always trying to bring across.
Actually, I wanted to ask the same thing, because this is exactly what we saw with Second Life. Mm-hmm. Everything was monetized there, so it was a financial space at the end. It was not a virtual space, it was a financial space. And I believe that this will happen with any metaverse, which we will wait for, because this is the way how we exist, and it will be just a kind of, how can I say, it will be recreation of our physical space. Yep. And of the economical rules which act here. So if we don't change the real space, the physical space without the rules, there will be no change in the virtual space at all. It might be even more exaggerated. Mm-hmm. So because the degrees of freedom are much higher in the virtual space. Yep. But on the other hand, I believe that the metaverse, so the integration of the physical world into the metaverse, where we have access to everything, we can travel physically, we can travel virtually, is a big thing to happen, because it might have very important impacts on our scarce resources. So right now we still don't live in a post-scarcity era. We live in an era where resources are limited, and mobility, for example, could be avoided by traveling in a virtual way. Yep. So we have positive outcomes, but we have the risk that the rules ruling right now in our world, in our economical world, will be applied also in the virtual world, in any kind of metaverse. I wanted to ask you a question, but you did it already in the same way.
Yeah, the monetization part is definitely there. I mean, with of all the social apps that I just named, all of them have to make money, because they have to run a team. So but they also don't want to shoo away users. So you don't want to be the guy that takes $5 or $10 as an entry fee. You want as many people as possible on that platform. So you have to go for a free, premium, whatever model, and that always entails either selling in-game stuff later on, monetizing through virtual content like Second Life did, or monetizing through ads. And I mean, it's a definite danger. And any marketing guy would love the fact that you can, in virtual reality, it's the first time you can exactly say at what part of an ad a user looked, what part he engaged with, and maybe even what part of the image made him make that buy decision. So that is data that is extremely valuable to marketers, because they can make the perfect ad for just you. With other technologies like deep learning and AI, and artificial intelligence could design an ad that is catching you on such an emotional level with the data they are getting out of the VR scene, that it's a little bit frightening, to be honest. But it's definitely something that you have to be aware of, and then hope that the majority of users chooses that platform which is not as invasive to their privacy. That's the only hope we can have.
Actually, I just want to mention very briefly, there is a third way, one which we've a lot of experience with here in Europe, where we have state television, and we have good state television in Germany, in France, and Sweden, but not in the US, right? So rather than monetizing the metaverse with ads or, I don't know, first-tier, second-tier citizenship, we just might to
have the
to have taxes, pay for it.
And the government will build the metaverse.
What's that? Yeah?
Well, it could be better to have a government rule the metaverse, but there's also a lot of intricacies with that, because, you know, once you have everyone in there and you can track every single...
Oh, but we'll be tracked anyway.
Yeah, we track anyway.
We already are.
Actually, we might as well just give up. Let's go all in with the metaverse. I think we run out of time, so thanks for the questions. This was a nice question. Thanks.